Fashion aesthetics have gotten a bit out of hand. Are you that girl? Cottagecore, balletcore, light academia, mob wife, corporate siren. Some of the hundreds of aesthetics do feel a bit repetitive. It's like we're expected to recreate ourselves and overhaul our entire wardrobes every season. That being said, I do still want to dabble in fashion aesthetics, and I have been looking into them to see if there's any that speak to me. So let's go over some of the different fashion aesthetics that I have found. First off, we've got Coquette, and this is not a style that I feel like I was very familiar with. It's supposed to be like vintage inspired and kind of doll-like, with like bows and lace and pastels. This style seems super impractical for everyday life because the outfits are so extravagant. I also think that upkeeping this style would be more expensive because the pieces are so unique and detailed. So honestly, this style was kind of like a look at it and move on. I think that it could be cute for special occasions, but I have no interest in only dressing like the springtime because I think that's also one thing about this. All the outfits that I saw that were Coquette were for the spring and not at all for the winter. Next, we've got ballet core, and this one I think is a micro trend. It's like tutus, leg warmers, bodysuits, wrap tops, and ballet flats. The accessories for this one I think are like hair ribbons, bows, pearls, and a sleek ponytail or bun. I felt like that was very common. For this aesthetic, I think material is very important. I think it's supposed to look like silk, satin, sheer. I could be wrong, but I think this style is more one that you find on social media and a lot less actually in real life. Like, I have never seen anyone, at least in my town, dress like they're going to ballet class. I think ballet core pieces are in a lot of different outfits, and I think they're in a lot of different styles. I personally don't think that I could commit to ballet core because I would also feel like a fraud. In my head, it's kind of the same vibe as when you go out and you wear a band tee and someone asks you what your favorite song is by them and you have never listened to their music. Like, I would feel like a fraud. A plus to ballet core though, I think it would be obtainable. I think that you can get a lot of these pieces from a lot of mainstream stores right now. Like, if you go to the mall, I don't think it would be as difficult like the Coquette style. I think that would be a lot harder to find. I think this is very accessible and very affordable, which I think is also one of the reasons that makes me think that it's a micro trend. While it's not for me personally, I do think it's cute. This next aesthetic, and honestly calling it an aesthetic does feel a little bit dramatic, is model off duty. Honestly, this aesthetic just sounds like someone made it up, especially when you think about what it actually is. You wear like everyday staples, black and white t-shirts, tank tops, jeans, and you accessorize with like leather jackets and sunglasses. This aesthetic is very practical because, hello, you probably already own everything in your closet. It's also affordable because it doesn't require any statement pieces. For this aesthetic, I think the body is part of the outfit. Like, if you see a plus size woman walking down the street in a black tank top and jeans, you're probably not thinking model off duty. But if you see a relatively thin woman, you're like, ooh, that's so chic. I think everyone should be included in this aesthetic, but I think the name changes when you're looking at different body types. It's like a basic aesthetic versus a model off duty aesthetic. I do think it's the same exact thing. I like this aesthetic though, because again, I love practicality, and this is as practical as it gets. Next, we have the Baddie aesthetic, and I gotta be honest, this did take me a little bit to research because at first I thought it was kind of like the Fashion Nova vibe, but then some articles were saying that it was like baggy hoodies and like sweat sets, and I felt like those were two very distinct things. So for my example, we're gonna go like the Fashion Nova route. So like body hugging clothes, bodysuits, crop tops, and like ripped jeans. One of the celebrities that came up when I was looking into this was Kylie Jenner, and I do find that a bit curious because I'm pretty sure this aesthetic originated from Black women. So having the face of it be King Kylie, it's a little bit interesting, but not surprising. I am not a huge fan of form-fitting clothing. I just feel like it doesn't make me feel very confident. So this would more than likely not be my favorite style, but I do love it for a night out. I think this is the perfect style for like a night out, a nice dinner, something like that. Then we've got Y2K, which I would argue was maybe 2021's microtrend, but it is still a little bit around for some people. Basically, we're looking at low-rise jeans, spaghetti strap tops, layering different shirts on top of each other, wide leg pants like cargo pants, halter tops, velour tracksuits, flared leggings, or yoga pants. Accessories for this one are like butterfly clips, baguette bags, chunky or like platform sneakers. I think this style was cute in 2021 or 2022, around there, but I don't think it captures my attention the same way as it did back then. I know low rise is slowly becoming like the norm again, at least I think so, but I don't think that people are really taking the Y2K approach to it. My take on it is that people who reminisce about the Y2K style that wore Y2K like in the 2000s are probably just reminiscing on the quality of the clothing, because if you try to do a Y2K outfit now, it's all polyester, it's not good, it won't last, not till the end of the year for you. And I still have items from my mom that she wore when she was a teenager in my closet, and they're still good quality pieces that have stood the test of time. Unless you're going to thrift authentic 2000s pieces, I don't think that you're ever going to be able to fully encapsulate what Y2K was and what it's like meant to be. Because quite frankly, clothes are not made the same way that they used to be, and that is just rather unfortunate. Next up, this one, I don't know. It definitely sparked my interest when I saw it. The mob wife aesthetic. Curiously specific. This is like maximalist. You need to have a fur coat. It's like mandatory. You're going for like leopard print and large gold jewelry and sunglasses. But most important thing is the fur coat. You need to have the fur coat. The makeup is like bold and dramatic, and the hair is very voluminous. I know this aesthetic was like most popular a couple of years ago, I think, at this point, but I think calling it an aesthetic is a bit of an overstatement, dare I say, as much or more than the mod off-duty aesthetic. Because looking into this aesthetic, it seems like you can wear anything as long as you put a faux fur coat on top. And that doesn't seem very practical, because does this aesthetic only work in winter? Because if it's the summertime, how is anyone going to know you're cosplaying as a mob wife? You're not wearing the jacket unless you are, in which case double points for being impractical. I think an aesthetic that is so heavily reliant on one specific piece feels more like a costume than a style. So I am not planning to buy a faux fur coat, and I am not planning to dress as a mob wife. The next aesthetic is dark academia. I know there's a light academia, but truthfully, I think it's the same aesthetic, just different shades. This is supposed to be vintage inspired, obviously a little bit dark. We're working with like earthy tones here, like black, brown, navy, green, burgundy. Some pieces are like a tweed blazer, Oxford shoes, leather satchels, cardigans, turtlenecks. I do think aspects of this style are very cute, especially in the fall, like the earthy tones. I like wearing a lot of earthy tones, so that I am on board with. But something I always do also consider is comfortability, and I don't think that this style would be that comfortable, even listing like the materials and the actual pieces. So I like aspects of it, but I could not commit to wearing this all year long. Then we've got the old money aesthetic, which I think you know what I'm going to say about this. This just feels like taking something existing, repackaging it, and giving it a new name. When I think of old money, I think of the old money blonde, which was like a huge thing on TikTok, I think last year, where blonde people were fighting each other about what is considered old money blonde, what is too blonde, and what is too dark. And it all felt a bit arbitrary, to be honest. This aesthetic is about timeless pieces and logo-free clothing. Think rich talks, wealth whispers. That's kind of what this style is going for. We're looking at blazers, cashmere sweaters, loafers. And curious enough, from me looking into it, it's supposed to be like worn in pieces, which I think is supposed to give the vibe that you inherited these clothing pieces. While I think the aesthetic is completely fine to look at, completely fine. But if I asked someone what their aesthetic was and they said old money, I would assume that they're pretentious. So my thoughts on the old money aesthetic: cute style, questionable branding. Then we've got Preppy, which I think was like the old money back in the day before we coined the term old money. This was like the blazers, the polos, the skirts, the loafers. And I did question what the difference was between old money and Preppy. And I think the only thing that I could find is that Preppy is supposed to look more polished and more intentional, while old money is supposed to look carefree and like you didn't try. The difference to me, completely arbitrary. The preppy aesthetic kind of reminds me of like a private school when you wear a uniform. I don't think there's anything wrong with this aesthetic. I think it's cute, but it does feel very, very similar to old money. And then we've got the vintage 90s aesthetic, which is made up of thrifted pieces, baby tees, combat boots, bandeau tops, and then for accessories like claw clips-ish and chokers. This aesthetic I think is very affordable because it almost exclusively requires you to thrift and buy secondhand if you want the authentic 90s aesthetic. And so I do think it has similar benefits to the Y2K style, where your closet will probably be made of higher quality pieces because they're not all exclusively made out of polyester and rayon. It might be a little bit inaccessible though for plus size people because there weren't as many plus size brands around in the 90s. And I also think with vanity sizing, the sizes, even though you're a size like say 20 today, a size 20 in the 90s was completely different. So that is something to think about if this aesthetic like piques your interest. Then we've got what I would say is probably one of the most popular aesthetics right now, the gym girl aesthetic. I think protein has taken the world by storm, as has Ozempic, and now everybody goes to the gym. And I think this style is very rooted in practicality because if you're working out, a lot of people don't want to wear a separate outfit and then change so many times throughout the day. So then the outfit that they decide that they're going to wear to the gym, sometimes they'll just put on in the morning and wear throughout the day. I think it's basically like leggings and sports bras and little zip up jackets, just basically activewear. So it is a very comfortable aesthetic. I also like this aesthetic because it serves two purposes. If this is your aesthetic, you're wearing it for fashion, but also to go to the gym. So it does serve two purposes. I don't think the pieces are ever particularly unique. I think athletic wear has a very set formula and the brands follow it. I don't think there's really, at least mainstream, there's not a lot of creativity or taking chances. So that would be one downside with this aesthetic. But I do like a lot of the other aspects of it. And I do wear leggings occasionally throughout the day. And obviously I wear them to the gym. And then we've got my favorite aesthetic, not because I like it on me, but because of the way that it has taken the world by storm. The office siren. This is basically just business casual, romanticized. We're looking at skirt suits, kitten heels, tailored blazers, button-down shirts, and it's mostly neutrals, not a lot of pops of color, so like brown, gray, white, black. I do feel like this was a recession indicator a little bit because this does feel like you're just romanticizing your 9 to 5 as much as you possibly can. So I do think this aesthetic is good for finding joy in the little things, but people genuinely got fired for how they were dressing to go to the office. And I think that issue stems from the fact that influencers work from home. They don't actually have to go into the office, and they're the ones that kind of popularized this office siren aesthetic. And so I think they influenced, as influencers do, people to dress like this into the office. And maybe people saw and said, oh, I love that piece, I love that idea. And then you wear it in the actual corporate world and it's not acceptable or doesn't fall within the dress code. Let's talk about the positives though when it comes to cost and versatility, because if this is now a popular aesthetic, that means that people who buy work clothes for work can now also wear their work clothes out and about and on the weekends. And then you don't have to buy work clothes and going out clothes. It's the same thing. These outfits serve two purposes. So very versatile. And that also means that you don't have to purchase all these new clothes. And when you are forced to buy corporate clothes, you can almost justify it more because you'll also wear them out and about. So I do think that's a great thing to consider. Another con though is corporate clothes are boring. They don't have a lot of personality, I think finding office clothes that you can like customize to be authentic to you and your personality would be a lot more challenging with this aesthetic than some of the other ones. I don't work in the corporate world, but maybe one day when I do, I'll take inspiration from the office siren aesthetic. I don't personally feel a pull to dress exclusively like any of these aesthetics. My favorite, or maybe the one that aligns with me most right now, is probably model off duty because it is very simple. And right now my style doesn't feel very evolved. I kind of expected me to almost feel a pull to like overhaul my wardrobe into one of these aesthetics once I started like learning about them and looking into them, but that didn't happen. So it could be that I just haven't found the right aesthetic yet, or maybe my ideal situation is pulling pieces from all the different aesthetics and having like a big jumbled closet. I don't know if the aesthetics are helpful for me, but if they give you a good starting point and make finding your style easier, then keep them coming.